Welcome back, fellas. As promised, this video will be a mech analysis on the Forbidden Gundam from Mobile Suit Gundam Seed. As stated in my Calamity Gundam video, the antagonist Gundam team from Seed consisting of the Forbidden and its two siblings, the Calamity and Raider Gundams, were just dripping in MS swag. That you couldn't go wrong with which one you personally liked over the other two. So, let's move on to the operational history of the Forbidden Gundam. The GATX-252. Forbidden is a second-generation prototype mobile suit produced under the auspices of the G Project, the Earth Alliance's mobile suit development program, which was implemented after the then main weapon of the Alliance. The mobile armor Mobius and Mobius Zero were woefully inadequate to engage the humanoid mobile weapons of Zaft, mainly the Jin. The Alliance was so clearly outgunned that it took at least 5 mobile armors to deal with one Jin, but that was still just a generous estimation of the mobile armor's anti-mobile suit capabilities. It's almost double that number of mobile armors to deal with a single Jin. So, while the first generation of G Project mobile suits were undergoing testing at the neutral colony of Heliopolis under the control of the Orb Union, 4 of them were Grand Theft Auto'd. You know, no matter how many times I see this, a part of me just thinks of how incompetent the Alliance had to be for that intelligence leak to happen. Anyway, while this was a heavy blow, the Alliance still made some strides in refining the G Project technologies all the same. This resulted in the second-generation G Project mobile suits like the Forbidden Gundam and its siblings being pressed into service before the war ended, regardless of who won. Now then, I just will put this out there that the operational history of the Forbidden Gundam would be no different than the Calamity Gundams, since the trio always launched together. So, the first debut of the Forbidden Gundam would be when the Alliance required a mass driver as a key logistical asset for its supply lines to space. They reached out to the Orb Union after they lost their own at Panama, but Orb told them they are neutral and to go kick rocks. So, since being civil didn't work, it was time to be savage, for which the Alliance Gundam trio did. The Forbidden was deployed alongside its siblings, the GATX-131 Calamity, and the GATX-370 Raider, where they supplemented the newly completed mainline grunt mobile suit of the Earth Alliance, the Strike Dagger. The Forbidden and its siblings were just wiping the floor with the Orb Union's Astray forces, making the Astrays out to be the pale imitations of the real-deal Gundams that they were, where the trio's only true competition came from their Zaft cousins, the ZGMFX-10A Freedom, and its sister unit, the ZGMFXO-9A Justice. But the nuclear-powered duo could only really keep them at bay from abusing the Astrays and destroying Orb cities. The Strike Daggers were handling the rest. The Forbidden would retreat once its energy reserves were dropping to dangerous levels, and after resupplying from the Alliance fleet, anchored near Orb's borders. They sortied again and first engaged the Freedom, followed by the Justice once Athrin decided to defect. The fight went on again until this time the Forbidden's pilot, Shani Andres, reached his time limit. I explained this part in the Calamity's tech specs, but I'll put it in the Forbidden's as well. But anyway, the sudden drop in condition forced Shani to retreat to the safety of the Alliance fleet, where hostilities ceased for the second time. The third time they sortied at Orb would be the final time in this operation, where they engaged the Freedom and Justice until Orb set its mass driver to self-destruct to keep it out of Alliance hands. But the Alliance was desperate to re-establish their supply lines to space and decided to attack the Zaft-controlled Victoria base and seize its mass driver facilities, where, along with other forces, the Forbidden and its siblings would be transferred to the lunar base and assigned to the second Archangel-class mobile assault ship, the Dominion, as part of its mobile suit contingent. The Forbidden would then sortie accompanied by the Calamity and Raider Gundams when they were ordered to pursue the rogue Archangel and the Kusanagi. They engaged the Freedom and Justice Gundams, who had some support from the Buster, Strike, and some Astrays to mainly deal with the Strike Daggers that were also part of the Dominion's forces. The fight ends where only the Alliance gains an advantage because of retrieving Flay Ulster and the N-Jammer Canceller data she carried, which was crucial for the next and most significant sortie of the Forbidden Gundam, where the Forbidden, along with its siblings, took point to intercept Zaft defense forces stationed at the Boaz Space Fortress before the base was nuked by Mobius units with nuclear missiles, thanks to the retrieved data from its previous sortie. The next sortie of the Forbidden Gundam would be when the Earth Alliance moved to attack the plant homeland itself with nukes, but were stopped by the intervention of the three ships alliance composed of the Archangel, the Kusanagi, and the Eternal. The final sortie of the Forbidden would be when it was mobilized to protect the nuclear strike force en route to attacking the plants after the unveiling of the Genesis WMD, where it was destroyed by the Duel after destroying its assault shroud. This brings an end to the operational history of the Forbidden Gundam. Now, on to the tech specs. The Forbidden Gundam is designed using the X200 series frame. During the G project, there were numerous ideas being explored with regards to certain roles and different structural setups that could accommodate those requirements. Three general frame setups were devised: the X100 series frame, the X200 series frame, and the X300 series frame. I already covered the X100 frame in my Calamity Gundam video, and I'll cover the X300 series frame in my Raider Gundam video next. So on with the X200 series frame. It's derived from data obtained by assessing the earlier X100 frame. While the X100 frame focused on ease of use, maintenance, and customization, the X200 frame could be considered its direct opposite, being the frame devised for equipping non-standard equipment for more specialized operations that required unorthodox tactics, where failure was not an option. Otherwise, the success of the entire operation could be affected. For example, to use blitzkrieg tactics to ensure an early strong lead against enemy forces, stealthily and preemptively smacking the enemy forces so hard that they couldn't get their bearings fast enough before they were further damaged by the main forces. Which is a good segue into the most famous and feared equipment the X200 series frame was designed to accommodate: the Mirage Colloid Stealth System. This system is so feared that it was banned from use after the Junius Treaty following the events of Gundam Seed. Installed onto the Blitz Gundam, the first machine to employ the X200 frame in combat. The Mirage Colloid Stealth System is a type of cloaking technology that utilized a powerful magnetic field to hold Mirage colloid particles in place. These are microscopic prisms capable of blocking infrared emissions, as well as bending visible light and radio waves around an object, making it invisible to both electronic sensors and the naked eye. The system's operational time is dependent on its power source. It's limited to about 80 minutes for battery-powered machines, while theoretically limitless for machines with a nuclear fission reactor. But the stealth system could not be used simultaneously with the phase shift armor. That makes sense. The PS armor is technically high-frequency oscillation armor, and the colloid particles could not affix itself to the machine if the armor surface is oscillating due to alternating currents. However, this is pretty interesting. It's clear that the PS armor could be calibrated to generate the magnetic field to affix the colloid particles. Otherwise, there would be no way the Mirage colloid could be installed onto a PS armor-equipped machine. But back on to the X200 frame. From a performance perspective, it's not much different from the X100 frame outside of whatever functions its special equipment offered. And they only really said that the frame was designed to install special equipment like the Mirage colloid, but never specified how. So, if I had to guess, The X200 frame could be different from the X100 frame by having a more robust electrical network to power its special equipment, and could also have specially made materials incorporated into the frame to have better synergy with said special equipment. Sorry, you guys, but these are the only reasons that come to mind. It goes without saying that maintenance on the X200 frame would be an absolute nightmare for its maintenance crews with those special systems that have very specific maintenance requirements. So, anyway, another unique feature of the second generation X200 frame used by the Forbidden is its ability to shift into a so-called high-speed assault form, where its enormous backpack flips over the Forbidden's head and is locked in place by the two hard-point indents on its shoulders. In this mode, the Forbidden has access to its powerful and well-balanced arsenal of weapons, as well as drastically improved defense by way of the armor plating and its sub-arm controlled shield units, which is where its special equipment comes into play. While the Forbidden's head and its communication system are covered by the carapace, the backpack also sports a large V-fin antenna to address this problem of communication and data collection. But that's all on the Forbidden's X200 frame. But before I move on to its special equipment, I just have one thing to add. The Alliance took the largest blow from Zaft after losing the Blitz Gundam and its X200 frame equipped with the Mirage colloid. It wouldn't have been so bad if they lost the other machines aside from the Blitz. Sure, they would have lost the PS armor, the miniaturized beam weapon technology, and the design data on the X100 and X300 frames. But Zaft's acquisition of the Blitz and its advanced stealth technology allowed them to build the Genesis superweapon without anyone noticing until it was too late. Maybe the Alliance deserved to get destroyed. Now, onto its special equipment, which is for all intents and purposes an offshoot of the Mirage colloid stealth system, the Gesh Meidig Panzer system. The system is mounted on the shields and utilizes colloid particles to repel and redirect energy beams away from the mobile suit. While the particles used are different from those in the Mirage colloid stealth system, both systems are similar as powerful magnetic fields are needed to hold the particles in place above the armor. This deflection system, however, seems to be ineffective against close combat beam weapons, as the Justice Gundam's beam boomerang was able to damage the shield's surface. This system is also used for moving through water and counteracting water pressure, which would be used in the Alliance's own amphibious mobile suits like the Forbidden Blue, Deep Forbidden, and Forbidden Vortex, where the X200 frame would be mainly used. Another piece of special equipment installed on the Forbidden is the magnetic field generator. To make the Forbidden's only beam weapon, the Resvelger plasma induction cannon. More effective in battle, the two Exxon railguns are equipped with magnetic field generators. These devices generate a magnetic field between the railguns that can alter the direction of the Resvelger's plasma beam, making it difficult for enemies to evade the attack and allowing the beam to hit unsuspecting enemy units. And of course, like its siblings, the Forbidden is equipped with trans-phase armor, a new, more energy-efficient version of the phase shift armor. The trans-phase armor is a two-layer armor system with the PS armor placed behind normal armor. The inner PS armor activates only when the normal armor is breached, significantly reducing power consumption and allows the equipped mobile suit to have a longer operational time as well as reserve more power for its weapons. Machines equipped with TP armor do not change color when its armor is activated, unlike the PS armor. Now onto its pilot. The Forbidden and its siblings are piloted by enhanced humans called boosted men. Individuals enhanced with drugs and specific training and education to be nothing more than equipment classified as biological CPUs. These enhanced individuals, later called extendeds, have processing capabilities and reflexes similar to top-tier coordinator specimens, allowing them to bring out the full potential of their Gundams as a means of controlling these enhanced humans. A certain drug is administered to afford them a stable quality of life due to their drastically altered physiology. But if they are insubordinate, the drug could be withheld, causing severe withdrawal symptoms. The old carrot and stick approach, now onto its weapons. The Forbidden was not lacking in offensive options at all. I think the second generation G weapons all had that down in spades. First up is the Eagle Stellung, 75mm multi-barrel anti-air CIWS. Two of these light projectile weapons are mounted in the Forbidden's head, and although designated as anti-air, they can be used for missile interception and to destroy lightly armored vehicles. Next up is the Arm Fewer 115mm machine gun. These are mounted on each forearm and are mainly used to discourage enemy units from closing in or to restrict their movements in close combat. Then we've got the Exxon series 88mm railgun, the Forbidden's main physical projectile weapon. A pair of these railguns are mounted on the backpack and are usable only in its high-speed assault form and can destroy most mobile suits in a single shot. Except PS armor-equipped ones, of course. Finally, we've got the Res Velger model plasma induction cannon, the Forbidden's only beam weapon, but also its most powerful weapon. It's mounted on the backpack and usable only in high-speed assault form. The beam fired from the cannon can be bent via the magnetic field generated between the railguns to get enemies from unexpected angles. Now we've got its optional armament, the Nidhogg Heavy Scythe. The Forbidden's only handheld weapon, it can be used to slice and destroy small battleships, mobile armors, and even mobile suits. The sharp blade is made using a special process created by technicians who once lived in the graveyard. I don't understand why they were being so cryptic about this part. Just say the scythe was made by people who survived Junius 7's annihilation, that's all. But then again, they don't want to acknowledge the help of coordinators. Even though Orb's assistants in the G project heavily relied on their nation's coordinator talents, that brings an end to the tech specs. In summary, like its sibling in my previous video, the Calamity Gundam. This machine slaps, unlike its highly specialized sibling. The Forbidden has a lot more versatility to it. It has long-range, close-range, high-speed combat, and even underwater combat options. This was the most unique thing about the Forbidden Gundam. While not specifically made for underwater combat, it can function almost completely unhindered without the need to swap out equipment for the environment. Even if it can't use its beam weapons, it still has its scythe and railguns. While this ability to function underwater is due to its special equipment, it doesn't belittle the achievement. Even if you were to go check other Gundam series, you would hardly find a Gundam that could do all of that. The only Gundams from other series that would be similar to the Forbidden in this sense would probably be the ones from Gundam 00. Since they could use their universe's GN particles in a wide range of applications, similar to how the Forbidden uses its colloid particles, if you could think of any others. Put it in the comments. But what was another plus for the Forbidden was that the machine had an effective defense against not only physical weapons, but beam projectiles as well, which were becoming more mainstream. As stated earlier, beam-based close combat weapons are the only exception to its anti-beam defenses, which is why it has its heavy scythe and high-speed assault form, for better maneuvers for attack and evasion if drawn into close quarters with machines employing those kinds of weapons. Land, air, sea, and space. The Forbidden could handle all of those environments without issue. But now, onto its main caveat. Everything is consolidated onto its backpack. All of its weapons, with the exception of the forearm-mounted and head-mounted machine guns, as well as its heavy scythe. I get it, though. All of these weapons use the same systems, so it was better to consolidate everything. But that also means if Murphy's Law, where everything that can go wrong will singles out the Forbidden Gundam and its backpack module was completely destroyed in combat. The machine's combat effectiveness would be almost non-existent, leaving it to face the enemy with just its scythe and forearm and head-mounted machine guns. No railguns, no plasma induction cannon, and no anti-beam defenses without its Geschmeidig Panzer system. It would still have its trans-phase armor, so that's something, I guess, but it would have also lost the bulk of its propulsion with the loss of the backpack, so it only has the sub-thrusters on its calves, while holding a heavy scythe that requires both hands to properly use. If I were in that situation, aside from avoiding combat as much as possible, I would probably ditch the scythe and run for the hills while praying that it was only grunts pursuing me so I could take them out with the machine guns and machine cannons. Although, if the heavy curved blade of the scythe could be jettisoned, so it was just the sharp tip attached to the pole, I would probably keep it, just to land some pursuers when in a desperate situation. So, with the Forbidden's apparent failure of the backpack test clearly on display for all, let's get some references by having its siblings also do the backpack test. So, if the Calamity lost its backpack, it would lose its high-energy long-range beam cannon and a decent amount of its propulsion. But it would still have the other thrusters that were distributed throughout its frame and all of its other weapons, and could still put up a barrage to wreck enemy forces. Also, since it's an artillery type, it doesn't really need much speed if it has enough distance, so it still has quite a bit of battle strength left. Now let's have the Raider Gundam do the backpack test. I know I haven't done the Raider Gundam's mech analysis video yet, but we all know quite a bit about the Raider Gundam, so we could still do this test. So, if the Raider Gundam lost its backpack, it would lose some of its propulsion. Its wings, which are its main aerodynamic control surface for its mobile armor mode, where it would also lose the ability, or rather the reason to transform into this mode without the aforementioned control surfaces, and the single autocannon built into the backpack unit. But it would still be pretty fast since the Raider has a majority of its propulsion built into its legs, and has all of its other weapons, so it could still whack enemy forces black and blue. So the final result is that both its siblings could still function reasonably well because their weapons and capabilities aren't reliant on a single compound module. But the Forbidden is spared from this kind of scenario since it was always deployed with its siblings to take advantage of each other's specializations to form a highly effective synergy and who could cover for it in case of emergencies. Because of this dynamic, they could hold their own against the most famous duo of Gundams in the entire Gundam multiverse. Something not much machines in the cosmic era could do. There's also one smaller weakness to the Forbidden Gundam's spec set. Well, not so much of a weakness than something people tend to forget. And that's the fact that its anti-beam defenses are limited to the amount of panzer colloid particles it could store, and when this runs out, the shields have drastically reduced defensive value. And I'm sure every time the shields block a beam projectile, some of those particles are removed from the shield surface and need to be reapplied. I'm also sure that the rate of colloid particle expenditure is determined by the power of the beam weapon it's used to block. The more powerful the beam weapon, the larger the colloid particle expenditure. I'm not even sure if they had anti-beam treatment, but they most likely don't, since they are easily damaged by close quarters beam weapons, while anti-beam treated ones could still hold up against those. And I'm guessing the anti-beam coating would interfere with the panzer colloid particles being spread onto the shield surface. But that's not to say that they are fragile. Finally, the technology pioneered by the Forbidden was used to great effect by the Alliance in their amphibious lines of mobile suits, giving a sleeker form factor than their Zaft counterparts without any sort of loss in combat effectiveness. As a matter of fact, the Alliance amphibious machines are definitely better than Zafts. But if I could just mention one thing, the pilots of these machines must have had brass balls, because if there was some failure in this complex system, they would have ended up like the Titan submarine. even when they had titanium-reinforced cockpits. And like the Calamity, the Forbidden has a bastardized variant called the Wrought Forbidden Gundam, where its designer just thought doubling its weapons would make it more powerful. Like I said in my previous video, the guy that designed this in universe must have been really high or trying to overcompensate for something. I'll end the video here. Till next time, bye.